Welcome and thanks for taking the time to view this video where we will be looking at upgrading Mac OS Big Sur 11.6 to Monterey. That's right, Mac is back with another flagship release from Apple of its popular operating system, Mac OS Monterey. Monterey has been available for several months, in which I've waited to create this video, allowing time for the operating system to seed in the marketplace for compatibility reasons. Here, I have 3 links that may be beneficial to you, starting with the new features and functionality introduced with Mac OS Monterey. The top of the screen will have our general overview. If you go to apple.com/macOS/Monterey, you'll be able to scroll through this page and see the various updates that are available. Now if we go back up here, you'll also be able to select on All New Features link, and this will also take you through some of the key features and enhancements. Additionally, there are other features and functionality, as we'll see at the bottom, that will be added later on. Of course, if you want to actually get the upgrade, you can select the Upgrade Now button. Mac OS Monterey will be available in the App Store for download. Sign in with your account and get that accordingly. Next, we have the Compatibility link, which will reference which Macs and applicable hardware where you'll see the best chances for success. Please keep in mind that it is possible to get Monterey running on other platforms, although it wouldn't be officially supported by Apple. Third is a brief reference on how to upgrade to Monterey. As with any new releases, there are chances that certain features and functionality may not work as desired post-upgrade, where it will be highly recommended to create a backup of your current release should you need to restore for any reason. Additionally, it would be good to have a regular backup available, even with a running release for various reasons. I'll put the links in the description of this video should you be interested in reviewing them at your convenience. That being said, let's look at an upgrade example from Mac OS Big Sur 11.6 to Monterey. With this instance of Mac OS running as a VM in VMware Workstation Pro 16, I'll create a backup in 2 forms. First is going to be creating a snapshot of the VM that would apply specifically for a virtualized environment. You can do that by right-clicking on the VM, selecting Snapshot, Take Snapshot. Give the snapshot a name and description if required, then select the Take Snapshot button to save the settings. In the path of the VM within the file system, there will be a .vmsn or virtual machine snapshot file. There may be other files as well, depending on the depth of the snapshot chain. You can restore from the snapshot if any issues are encountered, or delete the snapshot at a later time if determined that the system is operating per your requirements. For the second backup that will apply to most use cases, I'm going to add a new disk to the VM, which will be used to back up the current Mac OS Big Sur instance via the Time Machine application after powering on the VM. If you're using a physical Mac, you'll be able to use an external drive or perhaps a network drive to create your backup. To add the disk, go ahead and right-click on the VM. You can go to Settings, or you could just do Edit Virtual Machine Settings here. Go ahead and select the Add button. Select Hard Disk. There are several disk types that we can use on a virtual machine instance in VMware Workstation, including IDE, SATA, SCSI, and NVMe. IDE, SATA, and NVMe will be seen as internal drives in Mac OS when powered on and using disk utility, terminal, system configuration, or some other utility. While IDE disks are based on older technology and does have its use cases, I would recommend other disk types for consideration with this setup. IDE and NVMe would need to be added while the VM is powered off due to how they get initialized on the system bus. SATA and SCSI can be added to the VM configuration while the VM is powered on, although won't likely be seen within the OS until a reboot of the VM. SCSI disks will be seen as external disks that will make it easier to unmount from within the OS. Other disk types will still work for unmounting. Regardless of which disk type is used, it should be a sufficient size for the Time Machine backup. We'll see how to determine the minimum size of the disk needed for a Time Machine backup after powering on the VM. For now, I'll add a 20 GB SCSI disk that I know will be sufficient for this use case, which we'll see shortly. Create a new virtual disk. I'm going to go ahead and select the virtual disk for a single file rather than splitting it into other disks. And I'm going to make this 20 GB in size. Let's give the disk a name and select the OK button. You see that the new disk is presented here. And also, if we go into the VM configuration, we see that the disk is here as well. Whichever disk is used, it will be created in the VM's path on the file system and can be saved or exported to serve as a means for backup. This disk or disk can be detached from the VM later so as not to be unintentionally altered at a later time that may compromise the integrity of the backup. Now that we have the newly created disk attached to the VM, we'll proceed to power on the VM and continue with the backup and upgrade. As you can see, when we first log in, we'll get a disk attachment notification. I'm going to go ahead and select Ignore on this for now. You have an option to initialize a disk, which will present the disk on the desktop. And of course, eject the disk, which we don't want to do here for a moment. Select Ignore. We go into Disk Utility. You can see here that we have an external disk. It is currently uninitialized and it is 20 GB in size. This type is SCSI. And of course, we'll have our options at the top here. If we want to do a first aid on a disk, if it's already been initialized and has data, we'll be able to erase the disk and of course, restore from this operation here. I'm going to go ahead and use the erase disk. I'm going to select APFS for Apple File System and start to erase the disk. Go ahead and close this out. we can see that the SCSI disk on the desktop is there available to us. Also, if we go in our storage configuration, you have different options here where you can go in and be able to see various disks if they're attached. There's a SCSI disk. And of course, we have our OS disk here. If you're using Thunderbolt, or if you're using USB. If we connect a USB device that you might have as an external device, we'll get the option if we want to connect it to the host or connect it to the virtual machine. You'll get the options here if you want to go ahead and perform the same operation as well. For now, I'm just going to go ahead and eject the disk. Also, if you go into your terminal, type in disk util list, and this will give you some information about the disks that are available here. Okay, so we can see that the disk that we're going to be using for this here is under the external physical disk. And of course we can see that here for the actual name of the disk. Now if we want to go into System Preferences and select Time Machine, select the lock icon to unlock it, enter your password, and we'll be able to select on the Options button. It'll tell us the size of the disk that we need. Of course, we have the disk that doesn't have any data on it at the moment that we can use for this backup. We select that disk, go ahead and save, select the backup disk. Optionally, you can encrypt your backups if you prefer, and it'll go through this option here, which you can read through. We're changing your preferences on that there. I'm just going to use the disk for now. You also note that you have a backup automatically option. If you prefer, if you have that disk attached, it will do it at intervals based on your time machine configuration here. Go ahead and lock the configuration. So Time Machine has finished its first backup. Time Machine and System Preferences. Or if you want to go into the actual application, and there's going to be our backup. Go ahead and do a force eject. Moving the disk is still here. We still have the disk. Let's go ahead under System Preferences. Let's go to Software Update. And we see that the Mac OS update the upgrade now. Read and agree to the licensing terms. The system will undergo several reboots during the upgrade process. At this point, the upgrade to Mac OS Monterey is complete. If preferred, you can create a new Time Machine backup that will require more space for the backup post-upgrade. This concludes this video on Mac OS Big Sur upgrade to Monterey and VMware Workstation Pro 16.2. Hope that this was informative and that you enjoyed this video. We look forward to providing future content that may help you. If you like this video and would like to help out this channel, please consider subscribing to the channel, liking and sharing the video, commenting below, and selecting the bell icon to be notified when future content posts. Thanks and have a great day.